RCN.
We're going in the direction that people will want to scan all the time on jobs.
We're using scanners for all kinds of stuff, existing conditions. Well, there's different aspects of quality control. We could be looking at floor flatness versus installation accuracy.
You want to use it for capturing existing conditions.
I'm really excited about where augmented reality is headed right now. Observe and prioritize and understand where are the biggest opportunities. If you understand that the tool isn't pigeonholed into any one use case, you can start thinking about how can I use this to solve my challenge.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Reality Capture Network. We're here with Josh from DPR. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Okay, so for those that don't know you, go ahead and finish introducing yourself, your role, and the company, what you guys do.
Yeah, Josh DeStefano. I work at DPR Construction. We're a general contractor that focuses on mostly commercial work, advanced tech, life science, healthcare, stuff like that. And I'm an innovation leader for our West Coast region, so I cover kind of San Diego to Seattle. I'm part of our innovation and ventures team, which means that we're looking at technology in phases from all the way from discovering it to evaluating and looking at potential investments for our VC arm. And so my job involves a lot of looking at new tech, trying to keep my ear to the ground, see what's out there, but also trying to make sure I understand what our people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis and what challenges they're having. And my job is sort of bringing that together with vendors and partners to try and find a better way.
Sweet. That's awesome. I'm curious, how long has DPR had a specific innovation team or focus?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's a new thing in the industry
Feels
now.
like it.
A lot of people have innovation, dedicated innovation roles. We've had them for a while, actually. I was a VDC manager for a long time, and I made it part of my role to try and find new stuff and test things and take advantage of the program that we had. And part of it was what we called an innovation pod, and this was when I first started 12 years ago. So we've had dedicated people for over a decade. It has evolved and changed over time, but I guess we were one of the early ones to do that.
Yeah.
To try and at least in the early stages continue the conversation about innovation and sort of perpetuate that culture that we started with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Over the last couple years, what's a technology or something that you guys have kind of, gone through that process of bringing in, testing, and then deciding to implement? What are some of the technologies that you guys have done?
We're experimenting with a whole bunch of different things right now. I would say that there's a lot of robotics that have a lot of promise, looking at trying to automate certain reality capture tasks and things like that. And so we've seen things come from early stage concept where we're going to navigate the job somehow, and then what are we going to use it for, to in a relatively short amount of time, having a pilot where we're running, a robotic dog with cameras and different sensors on it through a job site to try and automate some of that collection. So we're really excited about that. I'm really excited about where augmented reality is headed right now. It's kind of been ups and downs, I think, for the industry. But I think there's a lot of awareness around potential use cases with it. There's been some fluctuation in the marketplace in terms of what's available. And we never really slowed down on it. We were always kind of pushing and trying to find better ways to leverage it. And so I'm really excited about the fact that we kept pushing that, and now we're seeing that get more adoption, whether it's an iPad version or a headset, and people are going we needed to do this, or we want better X, Y, Z. And so it's really cool to see that people are now starting to think, what can I use it for?
Yeah.
So I would say robotics is there. That's the big one, or one of the big ones that everybody's talking about. AR is kind of not new, but it's coming back around, I think, in some ways. Just the concept of spatial computing, I don't think we're done with at all.
Yeah.
I mean, just last night we were seeing somebody use the Apple Pro
Yes.
Vision Pro. That was pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Tried it for the first time last night. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
It was
I'm going
nice.
to track him down. I didn't get to try it last night, but
looking at something and clicking your fingers to click a button and it knows where your eyes are. It was fancy. I'm excited to see where that goes and where we implement it. Okay, I want to switch now to those are things you're interested in, that you're excited to see. What are some current challenges that you're facing?
that's a good.
I know that could go a lot
question.
of directions.
Yeah, there's a lot of different challenges. Prioritization is probably like the biggest challenge, because really there's not a lack of things to go out and solve.
Yeah.
And so when I hear you ask that, I think of a couple things, like prioritizing not only what I'm trying to do internally at DPR, but I'm also trying to take a different view of this conference and the industry, and sort of like, okay, there's a lot of challenges. People are trying to solve a lot of stuff, but there's an overwhelming number of challenges. And so I'm trying to sort of observe and prioritize and sort of understand, like, where are the biggest opportunities. And so, a lot of the stuff that we see at G Week is not pertinent to my industry or our work. But I try to look for different things that people are doing. So I'm really interested in understanding how we can better document things that we put underground as we do it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for things like that. And, I don't know if it's solving a challenge of having great documentation, I guess. Things that are, helping us investigate underground utilities, kind of along the same lines. Different ways of, doing reality capture, whether it's making it faster, or just different ways of looking at our challenges. So I don't know, it's a lot of minutia, but I think it really comes down to prioritization and understanding, like, what challenges as an industry do we need to solve, and then there's a couple things that I know we're kind of looking at from a company that I'm trying to go, okay, maybe there's other options.
Yeah, awesome. Curious, if we narrowed down to reality capture, what are some technologies or some project use cases that you guys have started, like, you implement every time? Are there use cases that you've company-wide implemented? Like, we could say, do you scan every building before you get in if it's a renovation? Or are you guys using, like, scanning and stuff for floor flatness on every project? Or are there things like that you guys have identified and implemented that, you guys do on every job?
I wouldn't say every job. We're just not that standardized. I wish we were in some aspects. So I wouldn't, it's hard to say every job, but I would say that there's a lot more awareness nowadays in the last 3, 4, 5 years to what we can do with the reality capture technology. And we're doing a lot. I would say, because we have self-perform, because we have VDC, because we're doing models on a lot of our projects, we have the prerequisite for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is quality control. Sometimes that's, there's different aspects of quality control. We could be looking at floor flatness versus installation accuracy. So we, across the board, do a lot of everything, in a sense. I would say we do a lot of things that support our self-perform work. So there's a lot of concrete monitoring and floor flatness. But capabilities still vary in different areas. So that's why I can't really say we do this across the board.
Yeah.
But like the bread and butter is, doing what a lot of folks do, using total stations for layout, using, different layout devices like robots and stuff like that. But getting, sort of back to reality capture, we're using scanners for all kinds of stuff, existing conditions. I push for that a lot. Our VDC folks push for that a lot, to validate existing conditions. So that's a big one. Quality control, kind of in any realm, is a big one. And I would say progress tracking is another one, where it's like we're doing that a lot, and I see that growing quite a bit.
Yep. Yep. I am curious if there are any, like, whether it's internal or external, are there any technologies or services that you guys have you want to use more, but you struggle with resources? Like, I'll use scanning as an example. Like, I see certain big firms, they start wanting scanning so much, but maybe the lack of people to hire or the lack of people that are already trained in it. Is there anything like that you want to scale that there's a challenge, due to resources?
100%. Yeah. I think I know where this is heading and I like it. Yeah, there is. I mean, there's examples of projects and teams that, I in some ways I feel like I've failed because they don't, reach out in some instances, but they also may not know. But there is a gap in just general knowledge about this stuff. So, what I want to do more of, I want to do more scanning for those specific use cases, but we have resource challenges. But what is great is there's other things happening with the technology that are making it a lot more easier to use. And so the barrier to entry, the ease of use, like that is all coming to a point where you don't need as much training, but you definitely need to know some things to be successful. There's some key things to be successful. And that's the gap that I see right now, is that we don't have that basic knowledge. You don't have PEs running around all with sort of a basic understanding of how reality capture works. And that would be a great place to be, because then they might get introduced to it. And so I do, and that's why I do some of the work that, I do on the side, because I want to influence where some of that goes. I'm here thinking about what the industry challenges are and what those gaps are. So from our perspective, there's definitely a resource gap. And I think that we're at a point where the expectation is going for people to be able to use them is going to be higher, because the ease of use is coming down. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yep. So it's going to be like, well, it's so much easier to use now. Like, why aren't we being successful with it? And it's like, well, there's some things that are more automated now, or you can walk with it instead of having to stop, but still got to use survey control, or still got to do, these specific things that make it more successful. So there's a gap in that knowledge. And you guys work, what's your reach as far as, where you guys work on projects? All over the place, mostly US, Europe, a little bit of operations, and mostly consulting in Asia. We also have support staff in Asia, but most of our construction projects, I would say all of our, there's a few in Singapore. So we're kind of all over the place. Yep. But but the vast majority of our work is in the US. By numbers, a lot of our projects are existing remodels, and that is a huge, possibility for this work. So that's one of the reasons I'm so adamant about, talking about it, going to this kind of stuff and finding that niche of geospatial reality capture and all of that. Yeah. That's what I imagine for a lot of large firms is like, using something as simple as scanning. It's like you've identified this value, you want to use it on projects, but you're so big, you work in so many areas. How do you handle, scaling scanning across all your jobs? When you get to the point you want to use it for capturing existing conditions, you want to scan during quality control. I feel like we're going in the direction that people will want to scan all the time on jobs, from the beginning to the QC to the final. And if you're doing that and you're working in all these states, then there's that decision of like, are you guys building all your own teams? Do you try to use external? Like, how do we manage scaling, the implementation? It's a huge challenge. Yeah. I've had varying degrees of engagement with this particular team. And it's required a lot of patience, because there's a whole awareness and adoption piece. We took the tack of building a team and going and trying to do that route. And I would say we're still in sort of a hybrid model, and has a lot to do with the fact, like you said, there's a resource gap. So people aren't coming into the industry knowing this stuff, or there's not a lot of resources for them. So we're having to bring some folks on and hire them. If you are finding people that have experience and they're good, they're probably already working.
Yes.
So, which is just like every other trade kind of thing. So, but some of that has to do with just how flipping the conversation a little bit. It's not all about resources. It has a lot to do about resources, but because we're a big company, we can leverage the fact that we're a big company. And so what we have to do is really frame it in a different way and create awareness around the technology itself. And we did this with VDC as well, and probably a lot of other stuff that I'm less aware of. But take it, instead of talking about the technology first, talk about the situation that whoever's going to be using it, whoever's going to be implementing it is in, and start with the use case. Start with the situation. I think using the word situation, or like, I don't know. That seems. I'm looking for perspective here, right? What is the challenge you need to solve? What situation? What perspective do you have? I'm a PM on a new project. It's existing conditions. We're concerned about whether or not that's up to date, whether the architect has the latest information, whether or not the design is going to be able to fit. Like, there's all these things, and it's like, well, that's one area that we can use your situation of existing conditions and the fact that we need to validate those existing conditions as the objective, and then work into, well, how accurate do you want that to be, and do you have a budget, and all these things that now we hone in on the right technology that meets the criteria, rather than saying you need laser scanning. Because if you let that go without trying to structure that, everybody has a different perspective on what reality capture is, what laser scanning's for.
Yep.
And so we have great awareness building, but we're sort of combating this familiarity bias of, oh, well, we did laser scanning on that job and it was like this. The turnaround time wasn't quite fast enough. It's like, well, wait, you were doing it for this specific use case, which meant that the turnaround time was really important. Got it. But it was floor flatness review, so you've got a tiny window, right? But to that person, that's what laser scanning is for, right? But to the other person, where I was doing an existing condition verification scan, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
And they're all right.
Yep.
But we've got to flip it around a little bit and say, okay, where are you at?
Yes.
And if you understand that the tool isn't pigeonholed into any one use case or objective, you can start thinking about, oh, how can I use this to solve my challenge?
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a big thing that companies need to look at is sometimes they just run out and buy one cool tool and try to do everything. And everything needs to start from like the end and work backwards of what's the goal with it. Then you can work into like what you're going to use the data for and what type of data you need, and then how accurate does it need to be, and then what device can you use, and starting that direction, as opposed to the other way around of looking at the cool tool and then trying to do all the things. That's awesome.
And you talked about, it seems like we're getting to the point where we're going to have to scan daily. I would say we are.
Yeah, we are.
We are,
yeah.
But are we actually doing a scan, or are we collecting data? So it kind of like, again, it's like, how do you define it, right? So it's like on lots of jobs, we're collecting information daily.
Yep.
Right. And we talked about this a long time ago in the industry of like big data. It's like, well, now that data is here because we're collecting it on a very regular basis. So, anyway, yeah, I think we're there, but that there's that same misconception about laser scanning being whatever that person's used it for, and not sort of understanding like all the potential use cases. We kind of have that same thing in a lot of different places.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I appreciate you joining and coming and chatting while we're here at Geo Week. Hope you have a good rest of your event here. What's your last thoughts you want to leave with the audience? What's on your mind? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to?
What am I excited about?
Yeah.
I'm excited about what we've been cooking up at RCN.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can't leave this couch
Hey,
without
I won't force
talking
it.
about it. I know we're doing, working on announcements and things like that, but it was great to sort of pull that together and work with you guys on the things that we're talking about there, because we're looking at trying to fill some of those gaps.
Yes.
Right, with the committees and talking to a lot of folks at the event here. I guess my message is there are people that are listening.
Yes.
Right? Like there are people that are listening. Matt and I are listening. We are paying attention to those conversations and really trying to hone in on what is our biggest challenges.
Yeah.
And how can we help companies like mine fill that gap and accelerate the adoption, accelerate the education, accelerate the ability to bring on resources. And we're in that same boat of we made a whole bunch of mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And I know people that were my colleagues that made some of the same mistakes that I did that I probably could have. It's like that happens all over the place. And so I'm excited that we're gonna take that on head on. And try to fix some of that. So
yeah, same. I'm excited.
Just a little teaser, I guess.
It is.
For the
yeah.
audience.
I mean, we're announcing committees. We're onboarding people. We're getting things rolling. We're excited to dig in and try to solve problems. And that's why I love what we're doing with RCN so much, is that it is community driven. We are solely trying to focus on the problems that the community has. And we will make decisions on what we focus on based on the feedback of the community. We're not going to just dictate it. Like, we literally want it to be a very collaborative environment. We want people involved. We want feedback. We want ideas. We want suggestions. And we're going to take that idea and spread it across everything we do, from the committees to the education content to the tracks at our conference to who's on stage speaking to, all of it, because everybody has similar problems. We've all hit headaches. We're learning the hard way, but nobody's really taken the time to take all of those learnings and bring them together to try to rise the tide, lift all boats.
Everybody's doing it themselves.
Yes.
Right. And I don't think there's as much like leveraging the wisdom of the crowds and learning from, people that made, some early mistakes really, really early. So, that's, you asked for like a message. I think that's it, is that people are listening, people are trying to change it. We're going to see, RCN tweak, and there's going to be a through line to sort of tackling all those challenges. So I'm really excited about that and where this all ends up and the future of reality capture.
Sweet, me as well. So with that ending note, if you're not already involved, get involved, share ideas, be open to collaboration, reach out, and we'll build it together.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.